RFK Jr.'s brain. So the New York Times is reporting that Kennedy found the dead worm parasite after suffering from severe memory loss and mental fog. And so then he goes to several top neurologists, and they see a dark spot on one of his brain scans. And according to a deposition a couple of years later, Kennedy says a doctor in New York determined that the spot was caused by, quote, a worm that got into my brain and ate a portion of it and then died. Now, RFK Jr. responded to this report, posting on social media tonight, quote, I offer to eat 5 more brain worms and still beat President Trump and President Biden in debate, making light of the whole thing. But Professor Scott Gardner runs one of the world's largest parasite collections at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and he joins me now because truly, Professor Gardner, this is something that has captivated people in disturbing ways. So RFK Jr. says that the worm got in his brain and ate a portion of it. You know, so as an expert on parasites, does that sound right to you? Is this the kind of thing that can happen?
Well, yes, you can get these kinds of parasites in your brain, but it doesn't really eat the brain. Basically, it just grows and then moves some of the brain out of the way as it's growing. So it's basically a tapeworm larva, probably, that got in there when he was on one of his trips to the South, to either the South Pacific or into Asia. And then it was in there for a while, and apparently, from what I've heard, is that it's dead now. So then it starts to calcify and kind of goes away. It doesn't really go away, but it just stays there. It's not going anywhere once it starts to calcify.
So it was there, as he says, it's there, calcified. I mean, the whole thing is just deeply disturbing, I think, for all of us. I mean, just to imagine that the Times, New York Times reports, Professor, that in this deposition, RFK Jr. says, quote, I have cognitive problems, clearly, I have short-term memory loss, and I have longer-term memory loss that affects me. Is this something that could happen from parasites like this?
Oh, definitely. This kind of a parasite that we think that it is, I don't know if they got a species diagnosis on it or not, but this kind of parasite is pretty common in people around the world where hygiene is not so good, and people eat pig, and so pork is a staple. And the basic life cycle goes from human to pig, and where people get in there, and the problem sometimes, the problem is that sometimes the eggs are ingested accidentally, and then they basically burrow into your intestine, and they get distributed around in the blood system and end up in the brain or any other parts of your body. But they really do gravitate toward the brain quite a bit, the species.
Okay, so why is that? How does it get from your, I mean, the whole thing is just horrible to contemplate, but how does it get from your intestine into your brain? I mean, does
there's a couple ways
it move up there? How does that happen?
Well, we could go into it quite detailed, but what happens is the egg hatches in the small intestine. It goes into the blood system, the hepatic portal system, goes into your liver. If it makes it to the liver, it goes to the heart. If it makes it to the heart, it goes to the lungs. If it makes it back, and it might get stuck in any of those places. If it makes it to the lungs, then it goes back to the heart, and it goes out to any part of the body. And for some reason, this species doesn't generally, but many times ends up in the brain of its host. And people have this quite often, and it's called Taenia solium. It's the pork tapeworm. Very interesting one.
So is he lucky? Is RFK Jr. lucky that it didn't do more damage?
Yes, especially since he only had one. That means he probably was infected by someone who didn't wash their hands after using the bathroom or something. So there was, or perhaps infected salad, a salad with a tapeworm egg on it. He probably didn't have the tapeworm actually growing in his intestine. The way this parasite works is it uses humans as the main host and pigs as the intermediate host. But if the person, if he'd had a tapeworm in him, he could have been infected from one of the tapeworm eggs inside him, but more than likely it was probably an accidental infection from some hygienic problem in a restaurant or somewhere else.
All right. Well, Professor Gardner, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And thanks very much to all of you for being with us here.